Welcome, everyone. This is my Revenge of the Sith, Anakin Skywalker, A Force Perspective. So, a few things I need to get out of the way first. Uh, Revenge of the Sith is obviously my favorite prequel film, and for a long time was my favorite film in the saga. But, like I said in my previous Return of the Jedi video that I've done, Return of the Jedi grew on me, and Return of the Jedi is now my favorite. But yes, Revenge of the Sith is still a masterpiece in my eyes. Now, I saw this film in 2005 on opening night, midnight release, and it was amazing. It's pretty much everything you imagine it to be. Everybody had lightsabers. Unfortunately, I didn't have one at the time, so I wasn't able to, you know, interact that way. But it was an amazing experience, an experience that I don't think could be repeated. Um, I didn't go see it again on the 20th anniversary. Uh, I didn't really have the time. And with my work schedule, it was just like very hard to find time to, you know, to do it. And the memory I had with the original release was good enough for me. So, that being said, this also was the movie where I felt that I had a connection with Anakin Skywalker and I understood him more so than I did with Attack of the Clones. Now, let's get into it. So, Revenge of the Sith, for me, as far as the Force goes, it feels like the Force and Palpatine are like working together. It's like they both had the same goals, sort of. Like obviously, Palpatine wants Anakin to be his new apprentice, for him to do his bidding or whatever, and the Force is using Anakin to fulfill the prophecy of the Chosen One. And the opening sequence to Revenge of the Sith is by far the best in the entire saga. It's like chef's kiss because when you're looking and all you see is like the ships on top, then it goes and it pans and you just see a big battle above Coruscant, and it is just an amazing shot. And when Anakin says this is where the fun begins, I didn't think about it at the time, but I recently watched it for the 20th anniversary in my own house, and this is where the fun begins. Like this, it's like he's speaking to you because this is actually where the fun begins when you're watching this movie because it's a lot of fun to watch. Um, so when Obi-Wan and Anakin are on the invisible hand and they get to Palpatine, and it becomes a clear that they're going to have to fight Dooku, and the Dooku fight pretty much goes down the way you think it would. Obi-Wan doesn't last very long for, obvious reasons. Not because Obi-Wan is weak or anything, but because his lightsaber form is not very good against Dooku's. Sorisu being Obi-Wan's and Makashi being Dooku's. It doesn't, yeah. So Anakin and Dooku are fighting, and Dooku goads Anakin by saying, I sense great fear in you, Skywalker. You have hate, you have anger, but you don't use them. And then right after, Anakin just unleashes his anger and his hate and just overpowers Dooku to the point to where he is completely on the defensive. He can't do anything because that's the power of Dim So, Anakin's lightsaber form, especially when you use the dark side along with it, which Anakin was obviously doing. So after Anakin cuts off Dooku's hands and has him in the kneeling position with the two lightsabers, Dooku's in his around his neck in the scissor position. Palpatine says, kill him now. And then the moment that Dooku turns his head and looks at Palpatine, that look he has on his face, you can tell that's the look of betrayal. That up until this point, Dooku thought he was in the plan with Palpatine the entire time. And this whole thing was a setup to begin with. Dooku knew that Palpatine was Sidious. This whole thing was set up by Palpatine The kidnapping, everything was set up as a ploy because Palpatine is a freaking genius. So Dooku gets his head cut off after Anakin hesitates, and he finally does it, and then he regrets it instantly because he feels like it's not the Jedi way. And then Palpatine tells him that um, revenge isn't a bad thing. You know, remember what you told me about this, your mother and the Sand People. So he's trying to, he's still trying to manipulate Anakin and making him think, okay, this isn't really bad. He's grooming him. He has been grooming him for years, and this is just another part, another layer of it. And again, the Force is working its stuff too, and we'll talk about that shortly. So they try to make their escape. They're captured by Grievous. There's that whole exchange and everything. Grievous runs away like he always does because he's a coward. Yes, I just quoted Mace Windu. Um, they land half a ship, and then we get to where Padme approaches Anakin and tells him that she's pregnant. And the look on Anakin's face, you can see happiness, you can see all kinds of other things, you know, and that's why Padme is a little worried because it's going to be a lot harder for them to hide their relationship if she's pregnant. Anakin at the time, he's not worried. He's like the happiest moment of my life, which seems like a very good moment, but is instantly taken away once we see that he just has a nightmare about Padme dying during childbirth. And from what we know of Anakin at this point from Attack of the Clones, he lost his mother and he vowed to never let that happen again, that he would be strong enough to save, you know, whoever. And in this case it would be Padme. So the rest of this film is pretty much him. The only thing on his mind is having the power to be able to save her from death. That is the only thing on his mind. That's the only thing he cares about. And then we have Palpatine still working his manipulations with Anakin, and he appoints him as his personal representative on the Jedi Council. Now, we all know that, and I'm pretty sure Anakin knows this too, that you have to train a Jedi Knight to knight or Jedi Padawan to knighthood in order to become a master. Anakin just thought that, you know, with Palpatine that he just skipped that whole step. No, it does not go down very well, as you can imagine. Of course, Mace Windu's the one that dogs on him, and personally, that pisses me off because I feel like even before then, Mace Windu had no respect for Anakin or anything, just didn't understand him. A lot of people don't understand Anakin. That's the problem. Yoda doesn't understand Anakin. You know, when Anakin went to Yoda with advice on, you know, how to um, deal with death or stop death or whatever, Yoda just blatantly just tells him, just let go of everything you fear to lose. You cannot say that to someone like Anakin. That is not good advice for someone like him. They used the same blanket statement for every Jedi, and not every Jedi is this. Anakin is like the most unique Jedi to have ever lived. So they're just using a cookie cutter freaking blanket statement for everything, and it just doesn't work. So he gets crap advice. So leading up to this point, he's already losing trust with the Jedi Council. There's several things that have happened. There's even, you know, a big thing that happened in Clone Wars when Ahsoka left the Order that led up to this. So they tell him he's on the council, but he's not granted the rank of master. And understandably, Anakin is frustrated. He's like, how can you be on the council and not be a master? So yeah, I understand that. And yeah, in the conversation that him and Obi-Wan have after the council meeting, Obi-Wan asks him uh, to spy on the Chancellor. And that's like an instant betrayal to Anakin because Palpatine has been his like mentor since he arrived on Coruscant. He even said so. So he's been his like father figure, even though Palpatine is not should not be a figure to anyone, but Anakin doesn't know that. Palpatine is such a genius at manipulation and just overall tricking everyone, even the whole entire Jedi Council. Nobody knows. And Anakin, having only one thing on his mind to save Padme, he's distracted, so he's not going to be able to pick up on that. And there are hints later on in the movie that he doesn't pick on because of that. So now he's starting to face some distrust with Obi-Wan. And it gets to a point to where we get to the big, probably my favorite scene in the entire movie, Anakin going to the opera, and we get the tragedy of Darth Plagueis story. And this is more of Palpatine teasing him with the possibility that he can have the power to save Padme. And what gets me here is that Palpatine would have had to known that's what Anakin's after. Now, whether he planted that nightmare or he just read Anakin's mind, either way, kind of irrelevant. Palpatine has the means and the power and the motive to plant that nightmare, and very well could have done the same thing about his mother. So we get that story. Immediately, Anakin is interested, and then Palpatine drops the fact that you're not going to learn this from a Jedi. So there's more of that manipulation going on. So at this point, we kind of get a sense that Anakin is going kind of the wrong direction, but kind of through no fault of his own, because he doesn't really know any better. He thinks he's getting legit advice from somebody he's known for years and doesn't think he'll steer him in the wrong direction. And this is just part of Palpatine's plan to drive a wedge between Anakin and the Jedi and Anakin and Obi-Wan, closer to him. So then we get to after Grievous is defeated, Mace sends Anakin to Palpatine to let him know that, the war is over. He should step down. That's when the conversation happens between Palpatine and Anakin. This is like Palpatine's trump card moment. This is his moment to just let everything out to Anakin, let him know he's the Sith Lord and everything, because he has the utmost confidence that Anakin is not going to do anything to him, because he's the key to saving Padme. Anakin thinks he has no idea that he's being lied to this entire time. So they have that conversation where only through me can you achieve a power greater than any Jedi. And that's what Anakin finally clicks in Anakin's head. Is like, he's the Sith Lord. He knows about the dark side. And there's also an interesting quote that Palpatine says, which I think rings true. Sorry. In order to understand the great mystery, one must study all its aspects, not just the narrow dogmatic view of the Jedi. I think that's how it goes. Yes, I think that is an actually good quote. I kind of stand by that actually, because if you only study one side of it, you're missing some key parts that you can study both sides without being a Sith or maybe even a Jedi. So moving on, Anakin tries to do the right thing here. He ignites his lightsaber and even tells him he would like to strike him down, but he doesn't, and he turns him over to to the Jedi Council, but he actually goes to Mace Windu, and he tells Mace Windu that I think Chancellor Palpatine's a Sith Lord, the one we've been looking for, and even Mace Windu's like surprised, is like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, he knows about the dark side. And then our worst fears have been realized. So Mace takes um, 3 Jedi Masters with him, and sorry, their names escape me for the moment. I could see their faces, but their names just, yeah. Tells Anakin to stay in the council chambers until they return. Well, the entire time Anakin's in the chamber, now I did read the Revenge of the Sith novelization when the movie released. I read the book after I watched the movie. I got the book beforehand, but I didn't read it until after the movie because I didn't want anything spoiled. So in the book, I remember there are key moments in the movie. In the book, it goes into Anakin's thoughts and all kinds of other things that were happening that the movie didn't show or say. But blanking on what that was. I need to read it again. But the things that were going through his head, like he's sitting there, you can just watch the emotion on his face. He's crying, he's looking the entire time he's looking at their apartment and where Padme's at the entire time, and he just like he can't live without her. He cannot let her die. He's got to do something. So he finally does. He gets in a speeder, goes to the chancellor's office, and that's when pretty much the fight is over between and Palpatine. Now, we know for a fact that Palpatine threw that fight because Ian McDiarmid himself said that Palpatine threw that fight. So that's 100% what happened. He knew Anakin was coming, so he threw the fight, and that was another manipulation to get Anakin to do what Palpatine wanted him to do, which is to turn on Mace. And that's what he did. Cut off Mace's hand, and then Mace was thrown out the window with Force lightning. Anakin drops to his knees, and you can just see the look of regret on his face. What have I done? And in that moment, I can only imagine that he took a path he doesn't feel like he can come back from. So at this point forward, he's doing what Palpatine wants him to do because he doesn't think there's any other way to come back. He doesn't think there's any forgiveness for anything now from what he's done. And he's about to do some really heinous stuff, even more so later. So after the conversation between Anakin and Palpatine, who has now been dubbed Darth Vader, but he's not really Darth Vader yet. He's more Anakin than Vader, but it kind of teeters from here on out until a certain point at the end of the movie. I feel anyway. Palpatine executes Order 66, where you see all the Jedi dying at the hands of the clones that they fought alongside for the past 3 years. Sad moment. The music doesn't help that it makes it sad. And then we get a shot of Anakin in the first going up the Jedi Temple stairs, and that is by far probably my favorite. I don't know. I'm torn between this score and Anakin's Dark Deeds are the best scores in the movie. Battle of the Heroes is good. Don't get me wrong. I love it too, but those just resonate with me for some reason. But going forward, this is where we get to a really controversial part where not only does Anakin cut down older Jedi Masters, but we see a shot of him igniting his lightsaber to younglings. Thank God it doesn't show anything, but it's implied. It's pretty obvious what he does. I still have problems with that scene, but it is what it is. And it is difficult to be a fan of Anakin slash Vader because of that, but that's neither here nor there right now. Again, Anakin is he feels like he's on a path to, yeah, he's just pretty much just given up. And he will stop at nothing to save Padme at this point because he feels like he already messed up. He might as well just keep going the distance. So we get to Obi-Wan and Yoda figure out how the signal will need to change the signal on the Jedi temple because it's luring Jedi there so they get slaughtered. So they change it to where Jedi will stay away. And as heartbreaking as it was to see Obi-Wan watch Anakin do what he did, Yoda even warned him. He said, "Only pain will you find." But Obi-Wan had it, and he was in disbelief the entire time, which I don't blame him. Obi-Wan's kind of he's growing on me as a character, and I don't know why it took this long. Maybe because he was overshadowed by Anakin in a lot of ways, but Obi-Wan is very much growing on me. I'm starting to become a really bigger fan of him as of late, but that's for another time. So at this point, the Force is pretty much doing. It's like pretty. Anakin's on the verge of fulfilling the prophecy in a sense. Palpatine is pretty much he got his way. He got Anakin as Vader, his apprentice. Now the only thing that needs to happen now is the Jedi need to die, which is pretty much already happening, and to turn the Republic into his empire, which is how Liberty dies with thunderous applause. Shortly after that is when Padme leaves to Mustafar, because previously Anakin had a conversation with her after the Jedi Temple incident, and she told her he was going to end the war by killing the Separatists. So she knew where he was going, and then unbeknownst to her, Obi-Wan gets on the ship, and yeah, this is where it gets really. Before Padme even gets there, this is where we see Anakin with the Sith eyes for the first time, is after he slaughters all the Separatist leaders. Which I'm not gonna lie, I did not care about that part. I didn't care about them dying, especially Newt Gunray. He was trying to kill Padme for years. That guy needed to go. So no remorse for me on that part. They were objectively bad people anyway. Uh, yeah. And then shortly thereafter, we get that scene of him just staring over the balcony, and you could see the tears rolling down his face. It's like one of those moments where you look back and it's like you remember who you were as a kid or something, and then how did it come to this? It's like he was regretting his decisions in that moment still, but he still felt like that he had to keep going. He couldn't give up, and he was already down the path of darkness. So he was like, screw it. So Padme shows up, and you can already tell in the conversation that he's dark now. She notices it too, obviously. And when Obi-Wan shows up, and that's when all hell breaks loose, because Anakin felt like she betrayed him by bringing him there to kill him. And that's when he force chokes her, which is a heartbreaking moment to watch to this day, because he's supposed to love this woman. He's stopping at nothing to save her life. Here he is force choking her. He's losing control of himself. And I kind of blame Vader for that. But then we get the awesome fight, which is my favorite fight of the whole saga, not gonna lie, just because of how fully done it is. And the fact that, Nick Gillard, I mean, honestly, I think Nick Gillard should be hired to do all of Disney's Star Wars projects that involve any kind of um, sword combat, not just lightsaber, but any kind of melee combat, anything like that. They need to hire Nick Gillard, because that dude knows what he's doing, and we get quality stuff from anything that he does. So this is where Anakin teeters a bit. We do not see him with the Sith eyes until later, but he is conflicted this entire time. He's fighting his brother, the person who trained him since age 9, and now he's 23 years old. And that's got to be difficult, no matter how you look at it. But Anakin is poisoned by Palpatine. He thinks all the Jedi are evil. He witnessed Mace Windu try to kill Palpatine. So in his eyes, when he says, in my point of view, the Jedi are evil, he's speaking his truth, because that's what he truly believes. And he feels like he has to kill Obi-Wan, which obviously that doesn't work out for him. It's his overconfidence and his confliction within himself that gets him defeated by Obi-Wan. So another heartbreaking part where Obi-Wan tells him, I loved you, and then Anakin, I hate you. And that's when his Sith eyes start. And that's the last time that you see him with the Sith eyes. It's 2 times in the entire movie that you see them. And I think that is where the moment that Vader starts to really consume Anakin, not completely, really starting to consume him. And it's Force is just Force had a big part to play in this. Palpatine had a big part to play in this. And we get to kind of parallel kind of moment where Padme is dying, giving birth to the twins, and Anakin slash Vader is getting the suit. So it's birth of Vader, the death of Padme. And I don't believe she died of sadness. That's kind of I'm not the only one that thinks this. It's kind of lame because I counter that argument by saying she felt like he still had good in him. That should have been enough for her to keep fighting. Now, if there was no good in him left, yes, I can totally see her giving up. But the mere fact that she told Obi-Wan there's still good in him should have been enough for her to keep fighting. But I think the Force was being drained from her, or the Force was draining her life force from her to keep Vader alive. Now, whether it was Palpatine doing it or just the Force itself, I don't know. Either way makes sense to me. I'm good either way. So, yeah, that's pretty much the end of it. And then we see Vader and Palpatine walking on the Star Destroyer bridge to witness the construction of the first Death Star, which ties into the rest of the films. So, in summary, this is one of my favorite films of the franchise just because of the stakes. You know what's going to happen, but it still hurts when you see it happen. Anakin's fall. And like I said in the beginning, this is where I actually started to resonate with Anakin, and he became my favorite character for a while. He still is in a lot of sense. Because I was fighting a lot of darkness within me too. But obviously, I came out of it okay. But he didn't. And it breaks my heart every time because I know what it's like to be that caring and compassionate to people, and then something happening and you feel like you have to go down a dark path. And it's sad to watch him go down that path where you yourself had that choice but decided not to do it. So that's the Luke part of me. I'm like Anakin up until the fall, but Luke after that because I decided to just turn away from it. I'm like, it's not worth it. I'm not doing it. I'm going to go to the path of the light. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, yeah, I could talk about this all day. But anyway, Revenge of the Sith, I mean, it pretty much breaks down like this. The Force, I did mention this before, the Force and Palpatine both are working in tandem, but for different reasons. And yeah, so in the original story, before there was anything else after, just the first 6 movies, that's all you had. He did fulfill the prophecy at the end of Revenge of the Sith in a way because you had Palpatine and Vader, and then you had Obi-Wan and Yoda. That was it. That's balance. Okay? Now they got other Jedi that survived, and yeah, they all got to die before New Hope because otherwise it's just going to take away from that story. But anyway, yeah, that I hope you like this. This is kind of the way I'm going to go going forward. This is what makes me happy. This right here, being able to talk directly into the camera because I feel like I'm talking to you guys. So may the force be with you all, and I'll see you again.